Assalamu alaikum friends, I am Areeb Rashid and welcome to the Scientific Miracles of Quran episode 11. In this episode I'll prove that Quran mentions that the mountains are stabilizers and Quran mentions that the mountains have deep roots. 1400 years ago. So let's begin. In 1855, George Biddle Areeb, he was the first one to discover that the mountains have deep roots, that the mountains are the stabilizers on earth. It was in 1855 when George Biddle Areeb, he's a mathematician, so he calculated he was the first one to propose the theory that mountain ranges must have deep root structures of lower density proportional to their height in order to maintain isostatic equilibrium. So he was the first one in 1855 to discover, to propose the theory that the mountains must have deep roots and the mountains are the stabilizers on earth. George Areeb said that the mountains are like glaciers on the sea, on the ocean. They have roots inside. They have deep roots. They exert less gravitational pull because they have roots. Their less dense material extends down into the planet. So this was from the George Biddle Areeb, who in 1855 he first proposed the idea that the mountains must have roots. Then later, in 2004, a geophysicist known as Frank Press, he in December 2004 published the book Earth. In that book, he clearly stated that the mountains play an important role in stabilizing the crust of the earth. He quoted that in that book, which was published in December 2004. But this is just only a few years ago. 2004 is just only 18 years ago, and 1855 is only like around 200 to 300 years ago. But Quran mentions 1400 years ago, in the 7th century, in the desert of Arabia, in 600s, that the mountains have roots and they play an important role in stabilizing the earth. They are the stabilizers on earth. For example, in Quran, Surah Naba, chapter number 78, verse number 7, which says, Wal jibala awtada. So let me translate it. And the mountain stabilizers. So again, in here, Quran clearly states that the mountains are stabilizers on earth. In the next verse of Quran, again another chapter of Quran, it is again clearly mentioned that the mountains have deep roots and they are the stabilizers on earth. For example, in Quran, Surah Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 31, which says, وَجَعَلْنَا فِي الْأَرْضِ رواسي أن تميد بهم وجعلنا فيها فجاجا سبولا لعلهم يهتدون. So let me translate it. And we placed on earth stabilizers, lest it tumbles with them, and we placed straight roads therein, that they may be guided. So again, it is clearly mentioned in Quran 1400 years ago, in this chapter and the verse, that the mountains, God placed the mountains as stabilizers. It means they have deep roots. They can't be just stabilized without roots. It's clearly again mentioned, it is a proof that Quran mentions that the mountains have deep roots. Again, in another chapter of the Quran clearly again proves that the mountains have roots, have deep roots, and they are stabilizers. For example, in Quran, Surah Nahl, chapter number 16, verse number 15, which says, وَأَلْقَيَا فِي الْأَرْضِ رَوَاسِيَ أَن تَمِيَدَ بِكُمْ وَأَنْهَارًا وَسُبُلًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ. Let me translate it. And he placed stabilizers, mountains on earth, lest it tumbles with you, as well as rivers and roads, that you may be guided. Again, this verse is again similar to the verse of the Quran from Surah Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 31. This is similar, but it is a bit different verse. But again, Quran mentions that the mountains are stabilizers on earth. It means they have deep roots. Now the question is, how can a human living 1400 years ago, in the 7th century, 1400 years ago, in the desert of Arabia, could have known that the mountains have deep roots when it was discovered by George Vidal Areeb in 1855 that the mountains have deep roots. He was the first one to propose the idea that the mountains have deep roots. But how can a human living 1400 years ago, in the 7th century, 1400 years ago, in the desert of Arabia, could have known that the mountains have deep roots? Of course, a human can't say that. It's God, it's Allah. How can a human living 1400 years ago could be smarter than George Vidal Areeb? And of course, at that time there was no science like this. How could a human even discover that the mountains have deep roots 1400 years ago in the 7th century? Of course, a human can't say. It's God, because He is the one who created every earth. He is the one who created the earth, and of course He knows it. He revealed this verse and chapter to Prophet Muhammad 1400 years ago. So again, of course a human can't say this. So now I have proved that the Quran mentions that the mountains have deep roots and they are the stabilizers on earth. So I'll see you in my next Scientific Miracles of Quran episode. Allah Hafiz.